So apologies for the delay. It took me longer than I initially anticipated, to provide my comment on my condition damage builds in response to the newest patch, which was released on the 6th of February 2018. So that's roughly about, 10 days ago, roughly. So now, the whole reason why it took me longer than I initially anticipated is because the Mesmer did receive a big change, and so I felt obligated to go back into my condition Mirage and then test the condition damage build thoroughly in meta events, in solo game mode, and also in the high-end content Fractal of the Mist, to be able to see what are the changes that they have made and what are the impacts that they have made to my Mirage. So that was the whole reason why it took me longer than I initially anticipated. Now the other classes, they have minors or not changes at all. So I will break it down for you into 3 reasons why I would not be covering some of the classes in this video. The first reason is that this video is based on the condition damage build that I have previously made, and my comment will be reflecting just on condition damage build aspect. So the first reason, they do not receive any condition damage changes. The second reason, they have received changes, but they are more toward the competitive modes, including the WvW and the PvP, and I don't test my condition damage build in those 2 game modes. This video is purely for PvE. The last reason is that they have received minor buff and minor nerf. So I don't see the point for me to go into a lengthy detail to talk about some of the very obvious. So I give you an example. The Elementalist has received a change in the signal of fire, allows you to deal burn condition damage in an AoE near the target enemy when you cast on it, instead of having just a single. So because of that one, I don't feel the need for me to go into a lengthy detail analysis and then talk about how signal fire will impact with your build or anything, because there's none. So given that reason, I don't feel the need to go and talk about it, so I will not be covering any of that. So to sum it up, the 3 reasons: no changes to the condition damage, were designed for another game mode, for the competitive game mode, and the last reason is minor buff and minor nerf. So the following classes would not be covering in this video. The first one, my thief. Second, warrior. Third, guardian. Fourth, engineer. The 5th, the revenant. The 6th, the elementalist. And the 7th, which is my scourge. The remaining 2 classes, the ranger and the mesmer, I will be covering them in a little bit more detail compared to the rest. So with that, without further ado, I will be moving on to my ranger now. Now for the rangers in this update, they are focusing on the bug fixes and also the improvements to the Soulbeast skills. So in terms of the specializations and the build itself, there's not a whole lot of changes, or actually like none at all, but there are some improvements that I have made, and so it deserves to have a little bit more attention compared to the previous ones that I have just mentioned to you. So the first one that I like to point out is that for those of you who play the support build, and you are now having the ability to increase the duration of your stance compared to previous one. Now let me have a look, let me read it out loud for you so that I don't mistakenly say something that's not there. So okay, stances now stack their individual durations in the case of rangers using the leader of the pack trait. So this is the leader of the pack, and in my previous videos that I have recently made about the ranger, this stance right here allows you to share your ability, not ability, but more like the effect of the ability, which is in the form of the stance, which you can see in here. Doyak provide you with retaliation, stability, and the Griffin's Might, the More, which is Protection, Fury, Swiftness, and Regeneration, and the last one is Might and Poison. So now that you have the ability to increase your individual, not the allies, your personal durations has been increased durations in about roughly about 3 seconds. So let me just swap on to the other one so that you can see what is the initial duration that it has. So as you can see in here, the Doyak stance will last for 6 seconds. The Griffin is about 6 seconds, actually 6 seconds. More is 10 seconds, and the Vulture, which is 4 seconds. Now let's move on to swapping by to the leader of the pack, and as you can see in here that I start having 9 seconds, also 9 seconds, and more stance is 15 seconds, and this one has gone up to 9 seconds. So as you can see that it's somewhere between 25% to 33%, with the exception of the more, which allows you to increase 5 more seconds out of 10. So that's like 50% increase in the duration, individual durations of the boons that you gain. So that is very good, in particularly meta events, or if you are doing in the group contents with other people, you can use this support build to provide additional effects onto your allies and subsequently make them a little bit more stronger or enhancing their survival skill. So that is the only thing that I would like to mention about the Ranger. So let's move on to the Mesmer, where I will talk to you into more detail on why it has received a significant change. So the Mesmer has received a significant change in the class for the newest patch, the 6th of February 2018, and the changes that they have made not only impact the Condition Mirage build, but they also impact the Chronomancer build as well. Now for the purpose of this video, I would like to just focus the attention onto the Condition Mirage, because obviously respond to my previous video, and for those of you who wanted to know what happened to the condition damage build. Now the second point I'd like to make as well is that the class itself has been completely revamped. So because they have made it so significant, there are a couple of mechanics that you previously familiar yourself with will now have to change to be able to adapt yourself into the new situation and scenario, and then respond accordingly when you are doing meta events, solo content, raids, and high-end content like Fractal of the Mist, and so on. Now the first point that I like to make that has the most impact on the Condition Mirage is the Phantasms. So if you have a look at the skill right here, Phantasmal Mage, and I also read from the patch itself, Shattered skills. These skills now only shattered clones. Phantasm can no longer be shattered and no longer count toward your maximum illusion count. Phantasms are destroyed and then replaced by clones after completing their unique attack, or if their attack is interrupted. So what does it mean? Now in my previous video I have been mentioning that you should occasionally shatter your Phantasm to be able to inflict the condition damage onto the target enemy if the target enemy is casting a lot of skill, because confusion deal additional damage whenever the enemy use their abilities. So now you do not have the ability to shatter your Phantasm anymore. Why is that? So before I answer that question, let me just break down to you the basic concept of the illusions of the Mesmer. The Mesmer has the ability to summon an illusions that spread out into two streams. The first one is the clones, which is considered to be a normal illusion of the Mesmer, and the second stream is the Phantasms, usually translate to a special type of illusion that deal unique attack onto the target enemy. So what is the difference between the clones and the Phantasm? So the first thing first, the clones deal minimum amount of damage, they have a lower health pool, and they are easy to kill. So that makes the clone more ideal to use them to distract the target enemies away from your Mesmer, so that your Mesmer can start attacking the target in a safe distance, maximizing your survivability. On the other hand, you have the phantasms. Phantasms are special illusions that has the ability to deal special unique attack. Take this one for example, Phantasmal Mage. Phantasmal Mage has the ability to strike and burn nearby foes. What it does is that it will create an illusion that releases a massive wave of fire that burns, confuses, and interrupts foes. So as you can see in here, it has the ability to deal burn condition damage at 3 stacks for 6074 damage, confusion 3 stacks of down for 539 damage on skill use, and 336 on normal damage. So with that being said, the phantasms aspect is more ideal if you want to maximize your damage by having a special condition damage inflicting onto the enemy. So what it means in this newest patch is that Phantasm can no longer be shattered and no longer count toward your maximum illusion count. The Phantasm will be automatically destroyed and will be replaced by your normal clones after completing their unique attack. So that basically, after casting the skill, as you can see in here, the Phantasmal Mage, after casting the wave of fire special unique attack, it will automatically convert into the normal clone. Ideally, in the previous video that I have mentioned, the phantasms can stay for as long as you want it to be, as long as you don't shatter it or not getting it killed. So the phantasms in my previous video is more useful in the sense that it allows the phantasm to stay as long as possible on the battlefield to be able to try and deal the maximum amount of damage. So in this patch, it's replaced that with having just the normal clone after the phantasmal, whatever the phantasmal that you're trying to cast will just apply normal attack, and will just apply the unique attack and then convert into clone. So that to me seems like a nerf to the class itself, because now I am a little bit worse off compared to what I used to be. But is it still decent? I'm not saying that is it completely becoming obsolete. It's actually not that bad, because now that you have the Torment to make it up for all the things, and the phantasm still there, but it will be converted into clone. And so basically what I did was I tried to not shatter that as many times as possible. One is because ideally the confusion damage is not that great in PvE anymore, and so there's not a whole lot of reason for me to try and shatter my clones as much as possible. I like to just keep it there so that I can distract the enemy away from my main Mesmer. But if the situation requires me to shatter my clones, then I would do so, but I will use that to with cautions. But to further add on to that one as well, occasionally I will try to shatter my my clone just so that I can have the vigor effect that increases my 150 points in my condition damage and 50% in my endurance regeneration as part of my rotation, that I can deal maximum amount of damage in the form of having the ambush skill. Alright, so that is the first comment that I like to make about the phantasm, is that it is a little bit less effective, but it's not completely isolated, so you have to really time it well, and in combination with how you can use your shattered skill to be able to deal a decent amount of damage. And also you have to watch out for your target, and also respond to the scenario accordingly. Right, so for the next one, I like to talk about the confusion condition damage. Now this second one is having a significant reduce in the effectiveness of the skill. So what do I mean by that? Changes to confusion duration and stack counts, which are part of a larger effort to cut down on confusion uptime in competitive modes. So the developer have been trying to reduce the effectiveness of confusion to tackle some of the problems that they have in PvP and WvW. Now in PvE, the confusion is a hit and miss. Reason for that is because some bosses and mobs may or may not use a lot of skills, and so confusion damage at the very core or basics mechanic is to deal additional damage whenever the target is using a skill, and if the target is not using any skill, then you will lose out that damage. Furthermore, after the nerf or the confusion, you will have a reduction in a lot of damage, and so subsequently that is not very effective in PvE. So with that, now that they have shifted the attention onto the Torment. Torment is a condition damage type that allows you to deal additional damage whenever the target is moving. Even if the target is not moving, you would deal a decent amount of damage, as you can see in here that it is able to deal onto the target enemy at 1111. Compare the basic damage between roughly about 1100 and the basic damage of the confusion. You only have 149 versus 1000. So basically it's more ideal for you to be shifting your attention onto the Torment and use the Torment mechanic more compared to having just the confusion. So that is the reason why I don't find the damage of the Mesmer to be, yes, it did reduce a bit, but it is still within the manageable, or should I say within the acceptable range. And I can assure you that I have been using my time for the past week to test it out in the high-end contents, namely the Fractal of the Mist tier 4, and I have been using my Condition Mirage in the solo events and also in the meta events, and I can confirm that even though with a reduction in my damage, not having a decent amount of damage in confusion anymore, I still be able to deal quite a decent amount of damage as a result of having the Torment as my main condition damage type now. So to sum it up, the confusion damage has been moved from the main condition damage type of the Condition Mirage Mesmer to the sub-condition damage type. Now the main condition damage types of the Mesmer consists of the bleeding and the Torment, and the subtype will be the burning and the confusions. Right, so what does it mean for the build? So for the build, surprisingly, I'm still using the same build. There's not a whole lot of changes or any changes at all. Reason for that is because I have found that some of the changes that I have made for my build during part of my testings, I have found that to be a little bit redundant, because my previous build, which is the same build I'm using now, is still doing the job just fine. Even with the reduction in confusion damage, it still be able to perform quite well. Reason for that is because I am now focusing more onto my Torment condition damage and also focusing more into my combinations, and that is the same with my previous setup that I have been using in terms of my utilities, in terms of my weapons, and and the equipment as well. So utilities, I'm still using the False Oasis, the Crystal Sands, the Signal of Midnight, and the Domination and the Jaunt. So the combination is this: I utilize the use of the Lesser Chaos Storm, I utilize the usage of the Mirage Cloak, and subsequently the effect of Ambush, and I also use the effect of these utilities to be able to deal the maximum damage. So the combination goes like this: I teleport to the target using my Jaunt, and then after that I dodge. Whenever I dodge, I will whirlwind my axe around, and it will deal it will activate the imaginary axis that subsequently will deal Torment condition damage stack onto the target enemy. And so after using my dodge, I will activate my utility 1, Mirage, the Crystal Sands, that would drop the Mirage Mirror. So it creates a mirror at the target location. Touching the mirror shatters, granting Mirage Cloak to you and weaken nearby foes. So whenever I have the Mirage Cloak, again it will activate the imaginary axis and subsequently more Torment condition damage onto the target enemy. And then after that activation of the Crystal Sands, I will activate my False Oasis. That allows me to drop a healing at the target location, and whenever I use my heal skill, I will activate my Lesser Chaos Storms, and this Lesser Chaos Storm will deal a random effect on damage onto the target enemies in the form of either chill or poisons, and it can also apply the condition tab in the form of weakness, and also providing me with the chance of providing me aegis which block my incoming attack, or provide me with the retaliations, or giving me the swiftness so I can move around faster. So let's just give me a second for me to show you the demonstrations of how I activate my combinations. So this is what I do. I teleport to the target locations, dodge, draw the first skill, and then after that use my healing skill and then dodge again. So with that, I will be able to deal quite a decent amount of torments, and then after that I'll just use my phantasms and other attacks that I have on my weapons to be able to apply more condition damage stacks onto the target enemy. So in short, initially I was a little bit disappointed after I read the patch about they nerfing the confusion damage, but after have been testing the my own personal build for the past week, I have found that it is, in terms of the effectiveness, it has been reduced a little bit, but it is still within the acceptable range, and I highly encourage you to adapt into a different playstyle now that you have to shift your focus onto the condition damage tab of Torment and use that to tackle on certain scenarios. Instead of relying on the target enemy to cast the skill, you will now have to use your movement to be able to deal the maximum amount of damage in the form of additional bonus damage when the target is moving. So that's what I like to say. Surprisingly to me, that I found that this one is quite decent even after the nerf and the patch and everything. So again, the nerf did reduce the effectiveness of the condition Mirage, but it is still within an acceptable range, and so I highly encourage you to adapt into a different playstyle than the one that you have familiar yourself with. Alright, so that is all I have to say. I hope you enjoyed it. If you have any feedback, feel free to leave me down in the comment section below. Otherwise, I'll see you later.